Welcome to the Minor Munitions and Naval Supplies instructional video on Planetary Interaction, also known as PI. In order to get started, you're going to need a ship, a planet, and the correct command center for that type of planet. In this case, we're using a lava planet. You can use any one. What you make will be determined by what planet you're on. All of this can be determined by using Alley-size PI scheme. It's a website that tells you what you can make on each planet. Since we're on a lava planet, we'll be making consumer electronics. These are a building block of robotics. As you can see here, we need heavy metals and non-CS crystals in order to make the consumer electronics. You're going to look for hotspots of these materials in planet mode, and in order to do that you're going to want to probably cloak up your ship. You don't want to be shot while you're not looking at space. The main idea is to find a place where both of these materials exist in quantities where you can produce the consumer electronics with one command center. So you're going to scan first for one material, then the other. These scans look a lot like a weather map. You're going to want to adjust so that you get the hot spots isolated. You don't want too much white or too much blue, so that you slide the bar back and forth until you get basically a better differentiation of where the actual hot spots are, and you're going to use that to select your location. As you can see, this can become quite time-consuming. This is probably where you're going to spend most of your time, and probably where you should. This will determine how efficient your collection system is and how much power it takes to move the raw materials to your production facilities. We'll cover that later on. Actually extracts the material are extractor heads, and the extractor control units are what you're actually going to place close to the hotspots. However, in order to use them, you need a command center. The command center is sort of the starting point for your collection facilities, your factories, and all of this. However, it does not need to be connected to everything else. It's simply the starting point. It's producing the power. It's also one way you could launch if there were no custom facilities on that planet. We'll come back to custom facilities or POCOs later. We own them, we set the tax rate, and if you mine on our planets, it's going to be a lot better. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see CPU and power usage. Remember to hit the submit button every time you set any structure. That's what actually finalizes it. If you forget to do that, you've done nothing. One of the nice effects of your command center is that when you enter planet mode, it centers on your command center. That's why we actually place it near where we're going to be setting everything up. It makes life easier in the future. We're rescanning to find the CS crystals and the heavy metals. You're going to want some storage facility, actually. We don't use too many storage facilities. What we need is the extractors to extract the material and then store it somewhere. We're going to probably store that at a spaceport. However, the first thing you want to do is orient this circle, this collection area circle, over the hotspots. This is the range at which you can collect material, and it really determines how much material you'll be able to collect. So if you set that over a dead area, you're collecting nothing. I'm going to set a couple of them. set first for one material, then you switch the scan to the other material and set it over the other hotspot. Remember, hit submit or you haven't done anything. Let's take a look at setting a storage facility. We'll first go with just normal lava storage facility. As you can see, it uses some disk and it actually stores a certain amount. That amount isn't very much. You can see right here. One of the things that we can also do, instead of setting a storage facility, like I said before, we can set a spaceport. A lava launch pad is really what we're going to want. It launches the material into space to the POCO. It won't really, oh look, we can't do that right now because we have not taken the next step. You're going to do this a bunch of times. I do it almost every time. You have to have the power to set these things. In order to do that, you have to upgrade your command center. Set it as high as you can. Depending on your skill levels, you'll be able to set it up to level 4. 4 is good for almost everything we do. Submit, and all of a sudden now you have the power to do what we tried to do before, which is set this launch pad. Here we go, we'll set the launch pad, anchor it, and you'll see that it actually has slightly less capacity than the storage facility, and the added bonus that you can launch the materials into space from it. This is going to be the collection point for all of our materials. Let's go ahead and start collecting them. In order to collect materials, we have to create links between the facilities. What these really are like pipelines to connect, to send the materials or the products between each type of facility, whether it's a factory, a processor that is, or whether it's a collection head like what we're doing right now. Go ahead and set them up. You want to keep these as small as possible, of course, because they do use power. Alright, the next step is to go ahead and set the extractor heads. You can set multiple heads for each controller. You know, the extractor control units control, well, actually up to 10 extractor heads. When you select an item to extract, it brings up the scan for that, so, you know, if it seems too far away, you've just selected the wrong item. Go ahead and pick a few heads. I think in this case, 3 should be sufficient. We're going to set to the time to 14 days. That means every 14 days you're going to have to come back here and restart this process. It also makes it collect slowly so that we don't deplete the resources. This way, multiple people can use the same planet and you will maximize your return on your investment here. Go ahead and position the extractor heads. They, just like your earlier collection area was for the control unit, each collection head or extractor head has an area where it extracts the material. When these overlap, you'll get a little negative number down in here. You want to make sure you don't have any negatives. You see when they touch, it turns red. We're going to maximize this. I like to have it as close to 4,000 as possible, but it's not always possible depending on the type of material or the planet or the true sec. All of that affects it. If you're in, say you're up in the highest high sec area, you're not going to get anywhere near this kind of return, especially on 3 extractor heads. You may have to use 10 to get a usable amount. That means you're not going to be able to be as efficient. You might have to use multiple planets to do one product, and all of this reduces your efficiency. The idea is to maximize that. So here we're going to use 3 extractor heads, getting about 4,000 units per hour, and that's really the goal. Of course, you repeat that process for the other material. If you had more than 2 materials, you'd repeat it 3 times. However many extractor control units you have, that's how many materials you're going to extract, and that's how many times you're going to repeat this process. This is where the material is actually extracted from the planet. The extracted material isn't very useful. It has very little intrinsic value until it's run through a processor, which makes it into a P2 or P3 level item, which is what we're going for. Okay, now that we've started extracting the materials, it's time to make it into something. This is where you set a processor. So, we've got the items, we've got a place to launch it. This will tell you where you've got it, this will tell you what's coming in. Routing the material determines what goes where, but everything's going to go to that launch pad. That's going to be our general collection point. So let's go ahead and send the material there first. It makes it much easier because then the interface likes to see you only send things where they can be used. Let's just say it'll smack you down if you try to do something that can't be done. For example, if you try to send a material to a processor that can't process that material. You don't have to worry about it. If you follow the PI scheme, you're going to actually go from raw material to basic industry material to advanced industry material rather quickly. However, routing is the key to this. You'll see we've routed our 2 extracted materials to the launch pad. They're collected there. They'll collect there until it's full, or until the process of extraction runs out of time at the end of the 14 days. We'll go ahead and set a couple of industries. You'll notice that these are basic industry facilities. We're going to go ahead and set these facilities. We're going to link them. We're going to create links just like we did before. We're going to end up setting whatever you want. The order you do this in is not important. You can do it in any order whatsoever as long as you know what the next step is. If you ever forget what the next step is, you can always look that up. First couple of times you do this, you may want to write it down. Okay, once you have them set and linked, it's time to tell each production facility or each industry what you want it to make. We're going to make chiral structures with this one, I think. Let's go ahead and set it up. You select the item, and then it will tell you what it needs. If somehow you forget what's next, you can always just go ahead and rescan, see what that area is, what it produces, and then come back and choose something that's appropriate. In theory, you have a better plan than that. But sometimes you just forget. It doesn't really matter how you do this as long as you get it set up. Remember, you only have to set it up one time. So in this case, like I said, we're going to go ahead and set up chiral structures. Nothing's incoming or outgoing. We do have chiral structures. We better go ahead and route those back to the launch pad. Remember, that's our general collection facility where everything's going to be. So we routed the item we're making back there. probably be a good idea to get the materials we need to make it routed to there. So what you do is you go in, you go into routes, select it, find the items that you need. In this case, we're going to take those non-CS crystals, we're going to route them, create the route, back to the factory, the industry, where we're producing the item. Go back, submit it, and it's created. What you've done now is you've created a route of 2 items. You'll repeat this for the extractor heads. In other words, I've got here, the idea is 2 factories per extractor head, making chiral structures on one side. And on the other side, we're going to not make chiral structures. We're actually going to go ahead and make toxic metals. That's the other half of items you need to make consumer electronics. As you can see, we're going ahead and setting up each one exactly the same as the one before, just making sure that everything's routed. Whether you route them individually or do all of the outgoing and all of the incoming routes at the same time, it doesn't matter. Sometimes I do it one way, sometimes I do it the other. All that matters is that you have incoming and outgoing both routed so that you have materials coming into the industry facility and products going out of it right back to your collection facility. In this case, once again, it's a launch pad. It's doing double duty as a storage facility and the mechanism to get these items off the planet once we're done producing them. Okay, we've pretty well got it set up. We're going to go ahead and take the non-CS crystals that we've made into chiral structures and the heavy metals that we've made into toxic metals, and we're going to turn them into something higher, the P2 item that we're making, which is the consumer electronics. Let's go ahead and set that up. It's the exact same process of linking and setting what we're going to make and then routing it. It's the exact same process we just did. Except for, of course, this time we're taking the 2 items we just produced. The system's really easy. It'll help you if you forget something, such as to create a link. As you're establishing a colony, you might notice that some of the steps are very repetitive. For each facility, you're going to repeat the same steps of linking and routing and establishing each type of facility basically on whatever you want. You never have to come back and do this again. It's a one-time process, so even though it's a little tedious at the beginning, you don't have to do it ever again unless you want to. All you have to do is come back every 14 days and restart the clock on your extraction process. Now, you are free to move things around, change whatever you want. It doesn't really cost that much. Sometimes you'll want to tweak the system a little bit. You might find that you need more extractor heads on one end than the other. Like, say, one material's much more concentrated than another. Well, you might have 4 on one end and 6 on the other. Alrighty, at this point we're pretty much done. we've created something from our chiral structures. We created our consumer electronics using toxic metals chiral structures, and we used 40 units of each to produce 5 consumer electronics. As you produce items, you get fewer and fewer items, but they're of a much higher value. So as you go from P1 to P2, you get fewer things that are worth more. Your actual value goes up. Some people go all the way to the end to make the most complex items ever. It's not necessary. Usually a P2 or P3 item is sufficient. I like to go ahead and put in a second facility for the P2. What that does is it speeds up the way we do it, so instead of every hour getting 5 units, we'll be getting 10 units. So you just repeat the process exactly the way you did it with the previous one. Alright, that's it. We are set up to produce items. In 14 days we can come back and collect them and start the process all over again. All we'll have to do is restart the collections. The collection heads will be in the same place, everything will be the same. You'll just collect your items, ship them off planet, and take them off to market to sell. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, questions, or want anything else shown, contact Box Solette in-game. Thank you.